Open meeting law requires that I notify the public that this meeting is recorded. Therefore, please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made by Boston City TV, part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications, and is being broadcast on Xfinity Channel 26, that's a new channel, RCN Channel 13, and FiOS Channel 962. With that, I will hand it over to Board Chair Wesley Ireland.
Thank you, Andrea. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to start with the meeting agenda. A meeting has been called to order. That's our first item. And now we'll start off with introductions of the board members. I can begin. Hi again. My name is Wesley Ireland. And I will be signing. I'll be using the American Sign Language throughout the course of the meeting, but you're hearing a female voice. I am a male. The interpreter is female. So she is interpreting for me, but I am a male. I live in the North End, and I recognize the other members of the board who would like to introduce themselves in order that I see them. So Olivia, I see you. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. My name is Olivia Richard. I am a member of the board and I hail from Brighton.
This is Wes. Thank you, Olivia. Next on my screen, I see Paul. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, my name is Paul Karen. I live in the West End, part of Boston, and I serve as the board secretary. Strong advocate for mental illness. Thank you.
Great, Paul, thank you. Charlie, would you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, my name is Charlie Kim. I'm a resident of the North End. I'm on the board representing parents with children with disabilities.
Thank you, Charlie. Ducia, would you introduce yourself, please? Ducia, I believe you're still muted. Can you unmute?
Okay, now I can. Thank you, Andrea. Yes, so thank you again, Wesley. My name is Ducia Zabowska, Ducia for short, and I'm the vice chair. And I live in Boston, specifically Mission Hill. Thank you.
This is Wes. Thank you very much. I see Carl Richardson. Carl, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, my name is Carl Richardson. I'm a member of the advisory board. I consider myself deafblind, and I live in Brighton Center.
Thank you very much, Carl. I feel like for some reason, I thought I saw Paulette here. Is she here?
She was. This is Andrea. She was. I think she may have had to drop off, but Juan Carlos is here.
Oh, great. Okay. That's the 6 of us that I see. So.
Hi, I'd like to introduce myself, sorry. This is Juan Carlos Ramirez, commission member. And I live
Sorry, Juan Carlos, of course, go ahead, thank you.
Yes, so this is Juan Carlos. Hello, everyone. I live in Boston South End and commission member as well.
Great, thank you very much, Juan Carlos. So now I see that we have 7 members. So Commissioner Akash, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Thank you, Wes. Hi, everybody. I'm Kristen McCosh. I'm the Disability Commissioner and ADA Title II Coordinator for the City of Boston.
Terrific. Thank you. So let me just check the agenda, make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. So I believe that is everyone from the board currently present. Now we'll need to approve the minutes from our previous meeting because we have a quorum. So I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Before someone makes that motion, does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns about the minutes as received from last month? Okay.
This is Carl. I'd make a motion to approve the minute.
I second the motion. This is Paul.
Great. Okay, so we've had the motion by Carl, we've had the second by Paul. All in favor, please raise your hand or signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none opposed? Okay, the meeting minutes from last month are approved. Thank you very much. Elizabeth, I believe you've joined us. Elizabeth Dean Flower, are you with us? Can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure, and my apology for being late. I'm Elizabeth Dean Clower. I'm a board member and I live in Dorchester.
Great, Elizabeth, thank you very much. We have just finished with the meeting minutes from last month and they were unanimously approved. Okay. So now we can begin the presentation, but before we begin this presentation, I just wanted to make a few quick comments to emphasize that at the end of the presentation, please direct any questions or comments directly to Dr. Roger Kleiger and Michael Martinetti. We may not have time for discussion between this presentation and the other presentation on the opposing view from John Kelly. If we do have time tonight, we can discuss this presentation, but it has to be done after the Q&A. And it will depend on the timing that we have, whether or not we're able to get into a deeper discussion about it with what else we want to accomplish tonight on the rest of our agenda. I also mentioned that we have received commentary from the opposing view that was 2 years ago. So I hope we have the opportunity, or we have had the opportunity to review that video information that was forwarded to you as well. If not, it's okay. So we'd like to thank Dr. Roger Kleiger and Michael Martinetti. The floor is yours.
I had an introduction, but if you want to go straight to them, that's fine with me.
This is Wes, I apologize. Who said that?
Dr. Ruby.
Oh, Dr. Ruby, I'm sorry, I'm not understanding. You have an introduction for the presentation or for the presenters?
That is correct.
Oh, okay. Okay. Then I would ask Michael and Roger to introduce themselves.
It's fine with me.
Okay, this is Michael Martinetti. Can you see me and hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'll start. So I'd like to thank everyone on the commission for meeting with us today. I'm Michael Martinetti, age 65. I live with my wife and 2 sons. I have a degenerative neuromuscular disease called Friedreich's ataxia. necessitating the use of a power wheelchair. I know very well what it's like to be both able-bodied and to be disabled, since my disability developed later in life at age 33. It was gradual, but a big change for me. I was a very good athlete and fiercely independent, usually going out of my way to care for others. Then, as my disability got worse, I learned to accept help from others, advocate for myself, while still giving back to others when possible, such as serving on the Lexington Disability Commission for 20 plus years and raising funds for a group called Supportive Living, Inc. It's a residential facility in Lexington for brain-injured adults. I learned to say no much more often. I just don't have the energy level or physical abilities I used to. And the decades-long transition to a different way of being in the world has gone well, but not without challenges. Aside from family finance and doing what I can daily to help run my household with my wife, I spend the majority of my time at medical appointments and doing physical therapy to maintain my limited mobility as long as I can. Regarding our bill, end-of-life options, I hope to persuade you with facts and the experience of 10 states and Washington, D.C., that the sky is not falling, as some in the disability community would have you believe. I understand where this negative view comes from. It comes from hundreds of years of mistreatment of disabled individuals like us. We've been discarded, kept hidden from society in sanatoriums. We were experimented on, sterilized and neglected by the medical community, abandoned by our government officials, and physically unable to participate in society by structural barriers. Then attitudes began to change because of our fierce advocacy, and the ADA became law in 1990, as you all well know. Society's attitudes towards the disability community have changed for the better, but we must stay vigilant and have a long way to go before society treats us equally under the law and socially. I've been working for us, our group of individuals with disabilities, to have medical aid in dying as a member of the disability community, because I've independently looked at what has happened to people like us in other states where this law is authorized and found no reason for concern. I ask that you study the materials we sent you on Monday, view the videos, and ask questions. Have a dialogue and tell us what it is about our bill which concerns you. Tell us if you see areas where the bill can be improved. I believe that we share the common values of minimizing suffering at the end of life and empowering people with disabilities to make the important decisions. I have faith that you will take the time to do your own research, have direct conversations with disability groups, in states like Oregon, New Mexico, and Vermont, where medical aid in dying is legal, and review the available polling or do your own polling to determine for yourselves how the law has been working for the disabled community in those states. Your opinion is valuable and matters, especially if you do a thorough evaluation of the issue, as we would do on Election Commission on Disability. I believe that you will do that. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you all, and I'll turn the floor over now to Dr. Roger Kligler. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael and Commissioner McCosh, Chair Ireland, and members of the board and honored guests. Thank you for having us. I am Dr. Roger Kligler, and I am here to talk to you about medical aid in dying. This is fundamentally about two things. First is whether you support the empowerment of people with disabilities who are near the end of life to have the care that reflects their values, priorities, and beliefs, and whether you believe that the safeguards in the legislation are adequate to protect our most vulnerable residents. And second, whether you believe in alleviating pain and suffering at the end of life. Just a word about me. I am an internist, adult medicine specialist who practiced in Brockton, broad practice. Brockton is an underserved majority, minority, and immigrant community, and I was there for over 30 years. I was a hospice physician for my patients. I had long-term relationships with my patients, including decades-long care of nonverbal resident clients of BAMSI, which is a service agency for people with severe disabilities, along with other people who were disabled and, of course, abled people as well. I have incurable stage 4 metastatic prostate cancer, which I have had for 21 years. I have numerous disabilities which affect my neuromuscular, muscular, and sensory functions, and I have bowel and bladder function issues as well. I need to be brief. I hope that you will review the handouts. Medical aid in dying is all about having autonomy to end one's own suffering. The autonomy of that person and only that person in the last stages of life with a terminal illness to be able to ask for help and get medications to take to end their life if their suffering becomes unbearable to them. They would die in their sleep. This has been available in 22% of the country for the last quarter century, authorized in 10 states and Washington, D.C. Oregon initially authorized this in 1997, and there are multiple safeguards. If you are going to take a stand on this legislation, you could see how this legislation has worked in general and for the disability community in these states. Oregon has the most robust data, and I would suggest that you might want to look at that. The safeguards in the Mass Bill are the most stringent in any state, and they are there to protect our most vulnerable residents. All the safeguards were in the Oregon bill, plus this bill added a mandatory mental health evaluation. The person must meet all of the following. 1, they need to be an adult resident. 2, they need to have terminal illness, with less than 6 months life expectancy, which is the same as hospice, which has worked well for this country for probably half a century. People are not solely eligible due to age or disability anywhere in the United States. 2 physicians certify that the individual is terminally ill, that there has been no coercion, and that they are mentally capable to make medical decisions. 4, they be told of all feasible options, including hospice and palliative care. Number 5, a mental health professional certifies that they do not have impaired judgment due to underlying psychiatric illness, that they have mental capacity to make medical decisions on their own, and they have not been coerced. In addition, they also ask the person if they want to rescind their decision. Number 5, this has to be requested by the individual only, not by family or proxy. They cannot have a guardian. Number 7, they have to self-ingest the medication by mouth or by tube. 8, it is voluntary for everyone involved, the doctor, the pharmacist, and the person. Number 9, 2 requests with a 15-day waiting period. Number 10, the first request is orally, at which time the physician evaluates the person. Number 11, the second request is written after 15 days with 2 witnesses, at least 1 disinterested party being a witness. Number 12, people are able to rescind the request at any time. They must be asked if they want to rescind it at least 5 different times by 3 different professionals to make sure that this is indeed what they want. 13, the death is due to the underlying disease to protect life insurance and in conformity with medical standards. In addition, coercion by anyone is a felony offense, meaning it's more than a year in jail. How have the safeguards worked elsewhere? This is really kind of remarkable that there has not been a single case of abuse or coercion, nor any criminal or disciplinary charges filed in any of the 11 jurisdictions over the 25 years. Why is this needed? We have hospice and palliative care. These are great programs, but they can only do so much. People continue to suffer, with 60 to 90% of people with pain, dying people with pain, having breakthrough pain, which is severe pain that overwhelms their usual medications. Family members report that 26% of their deceased died with uncontrollable pain, and 21% with uncontrollable shortness of breath. I have given palliative sedation, which is intravenous medication to induce coma, to at least 4 of my patients who had uncontrollable pain that we were not able to take care of otherwise. Dying is often about pain and suffering, which worsens over time. I understand that you've been asked to oppose this legislation. I appreciate the chance to talk to you before you reach a decision. I would ask you to consider the 4 following questions before you vote. Number 1, do you know that you represent the opinion of the disability community on this issue? Multiple polls show overwhelming support by them. In March 2023, Beacon Research showed that 68% of people with disabilities supported having this option, and this went up to 78% when they found out the safeguards included in the legislation. This was similar to the population at large. A Susquehanna poll this year showed that 79% support for medical aid in dying among people with disability. Susquehanna was national poll. Both these polls are statistically significant, meaning that they are scientifically valid. Besides the individuals with disabilities, all segments of society support medical aid in dying by absolute majorities, meaning way over 50%, based on politics, race, religion, and age. In 2013, Purple Insight survey found support of the voters with disabilities to be 74%. I do not know of other polls showing something else. If you do not believe these polls, would you consider doing your own poll of your constituency? That is what we did at Mass Medical when we found that doctors support having this legislation by 2-to-1. Number 2, do you want to limit the autonomy of individuals with disabilities to die a peaceful death? Realizing that people have different beliefs and values, pain thresholds, fears, and desires, do you want your decision to withhold this option to everyone? Do you believe that some members of the disability community may want to avail themselves of this option? Number 3, have you been in contact or reviewed the opinions of disability rights organizations in states where medical aid in dying is authorized? In particular, Disability Rights Oregon, where this has been authorized for over 25 years. Their executive director wrote in 2019, in the years since passage of the Oregon Death with Dignity Act, DRO, has received very few complaints from disabled Oregonians about the act. All the complaints have focused on the concern that the act may discriminate against persons with disabilities who would seek to make use of the act but have disabilities that would prevent self-administration. New Mexico and Vermont disability rights have declared that the safeguards in their bills are adequate. These opinions are in your packet. Do you have reason to believe these opinions are mistaken? Number 4, have you reviewed the medical literature on this subject, which has not shown vulnerable members of society negatively impacted by this law in the United States? Thank you very much, and I am open for questions now.
Thank you very much, Roger and Mac. Before we open for questions, I would like to recognize Eric Ruby, who has been, I've been told that he was the one who wanted to introduce our instructor, our presenters, and so I apologize for that misstep. I guess I didn't see that your name was on the list to do that introduction. So if you would like to make any comment or closing comments, Mr. Ruby, then go ahead, you've got the floor.
Well, thank you very much for giving us this time. I feel that asking questions is the best use of the time at this point.
Okay. All right, thank you very much then, Mr. Ruby. I'm going to actually transfer now to notes. Okay, so right now we're going to open up for open questions for our presenters from the board first. Are there any board members who would like to ask questions of our presenters? Okay, I'm going to recognize Olivia. Go ahead, Olivia.
This is Olivia Richard. I was wondering, the requirement for the 2 physician evaluation, do those physicians have to be independent of each other? Meaning, can the 2 physicians be within the same practice?
Yes, they can be in the same practice. In fact, most of medicine is practiced that way these days, that, most of the doctors that you work with, or a lot of the doctors that you work with are in the practice and that you tend to refer. But typically what it would be is that you would have people of different specialties. It doesn't have to happen, but having an oncologist, a cancer doctor, and the primary care who's taking care of them, people who have been involved with the care of the person to begin with. So usually they're people, or often, but they don't have to be, people who have been involved with the care of the patient to begin with. In complex medical cases, usually there are multiple physicians. I'll tell you, I have at least half a dozen doctors who are taking care of me, and I assume that many of us do. And we get referred to them based upon who our other doctors think are the best, and often they're in, similar practices.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, are there other questions or comments from the board? Okay, I'd like to recognize Charlie Kim. Charlie, go ahead, you have the floor.
Hi, this is actually a more procedural question. I do want to thank the presenters for coming, because we have been asking as a board to hear both sides of the argument and of the issue. But procedurally, is there something that we have holding, and I don't know if Chair Ireland, if you know, or if Andrea, is there something that's holding? I know that there's a letter of support, but is that an old business, or is that being brought up for new business for us to be doing something today procedurally?
Sure, this is Wes. That is being held until we're focusing first of all on the questions related to the presentation. And then as part of the process, we'll be discussing whether we're for or against, or what we think about the bill after that. It'll be after all of the questions have been answered related to our presenters' information today.
Wes, if you don't mind, I'll just say you could take a vote today on a letter under new business. No vote has been taken yet. And Lori, would you mind leaning a little closer to the mic? Cable's having a hard time picking you up when you voice. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, at least hopefully we'll have time left in the meeting to be able to do that. So it depends on the timing. All right, then. Does that answer your question, Charlie, in terms of procedure? Good. Okay, I saw that acknowledgement. I'd like to recognize Elizabeth now, please. And then...
Hi. Oh, shoot. Excuse me for a bit. Yes, sorry about the interruption. Yes, I happen to be a retired public health doctor myself, as far as my background, and I realize there is complexity to this issue. I'm a little bit surprised to hear that the numbers are comparable in the disability community to the able-bodied community on this issue, given the, I believe I heard that correctly, both as a polling question. I know some people with different, given the array of disabilities, some hidden as well as visible disabilities, that some people, I'm sorry about the interruptions, that I am curious to know, I don't know if you're, particularly the doctors, if you're familiar with the work of Dr. Lisa Iazzoni on physician attitudes about disability, but I think there are some legitimate concerns, not in the realm of wanting to take away autonomy of patients, but whether it's misconceptions or that because there has been a history of some abuses. How would you answer the question about people that, I guess the concern about safeguards is whether they would be applied equally to people with disabilities?
Well, okay. First thing I'll talk about is the polling. So this was statistically significant, meaning that we had a large number, not we, the polls had a large number of people in the disability community. The Susquehanna poll, I believe, had 11% of people who self-described as having disabilities, and the Beacon was 19%. The place to really ask that question is Disability Rights Oregon. They've had 25 years of experience with this, and they have not had problems coming from the disability community. They are tasked to make sure that there are things that people with disabilities are legally protected from forms of discrimination. So they would be the go-to side. I would also say that people with disabilities are like everyone else in that we all die. And death is a common thing. So this is one of the few things that is bipartisan in this world. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, and conservatives all support this, older, younger people, and it's by huge margins. It's like 60s and 70%. And when we start talking about the safeguards in the measure, it goes up by 8 to 10%. So I'm not surprised that people with disabilities like Michael and I are in support of this, because we know that we are going to die. We both have an illness that may cause our death, and we both know that we would like to minimize it. And Michael hasn't mentioned it, but he had a brother who died under less than optimal circumstances. And I watched my mother die 30-odd years ago, and she had a horrible death from cancer. And I did everything I could. She had the best of the best, and she suffered badly. And so, you know, a lot of people have seen loved ones die and say, you know, there's got to be a better way. And this isn't a perfect bill, but it's a bill that tends to help a number of people to be able to die more peacefully. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that does provide additional information. Again, I think our challenge as an advisory board is trying to balance the rights of individuals with with the situation of stories where there are some continued abuses. But I think that does provide additional clarity. And I was one of the people who we appreciated wanting to hear both sides of this story, of this support and opposition to this bill.
Thank you very much for that.
Okay. I also have a question. This is Wes, and it is related to the polling. I recognize that the Beacon poll is a survey of had a little over 1,000 Massachusetts residents who responded to that poll. And that seems like a pretty small number comparative to, you know, the percentage of people in Massachusetts. So of those who have a disability in that poll, those who responded in that poll, you're saying that there are people who were in support of the bill, but for those, of those 1,000 people, I think 18 people, right? If 18 people had
19, oh,
so it was 19.
percent.
Okay, so how many disabled people then would have participated in the poll in that sense?
193. Anything over 100 people in a poll is considered to be statistically significant, meaning that it's a scientifically valid number. And this was twice that. And if you add another 112 from the Susquehanna poll, which was nationwide, Beacon was just in Massachusetts, but you get 300 people.
Okay, I see. Well, from my point of view, it just seems like it's a very small number of disabled people. So I'm feeling a little bit biased, I guess, about the poll, but I do thank you for answering that question. All right.
Can I
I see
just say something a little bit more on that? If you are, I'm told that this is an accurate poll in, you know, polling represents, but if you are uncomfortable with the polling, you may want to do your own polling. And that's certainly an option that we talked about earlier in the presentation.
Okay. Thank you very much. And for reminding me of that option. So I'm going to now recognize Elizabeth. Elizabeth, you have the floor. I see that you have another question.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I agree that that does seem like a small poll number. So to draw too much of a generalization from that seems concerning. And I think that Olivia also raised a good point, that if the two physicians can be in the same practice, they, my concern about that would be, rather than two independent evaluations, might there be some bias in a similar direction, even if it's not intended?
So as someone who practiced primary care internal medicine, why would a physician want to do that? Why would they want to jeopardize their license to say that someone was terminally ill, that someone had requested medical aid in dying, that someone wasn't coerced, and put their license on the line to let them take a medication to end their lives? It doesn't make any sense that a physician would want to do that. And as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I know, there have not been any charges leveled against any physician for doing it. Now, you'll read in the papers sometimes a nurse gets charged or a doctor gets charged with some sort of crime. You know, they're in the papers. I don't know how much you pay attention to it. It's not very often, but things happen. There has never been an issue of anyone having any criminal or administrative, major administrative issues with this throughout the 11 jurisdictions in 25 years. No disciplinary charges So saying that this is going to happen because someone might be in the same practice, I'll tell you, doctors who are in practice are risk averse. They don't want to do anything that will get them in trouble, and they try and keep their, keep out of trouble's way. So to say that someone is terminally ill, almost all these people are in hospice. They're being evaluated by people also who are outside the practice. The mental health provider isn't within it, is just drawing up a scenario that frankly I don't see happening. But you can certainly check this with other disability rights organizations that are in states where medical aid in dying is happening. And I'd strongly encourage you to talk with these people and find out what is happening there instead of drawing up scary things. I know it's, that people can do things, but these are things that have not come up in 25 years in other places. So why they would come up with our population, I don't think is reasonable. And you have a lot of history. This isn't like the start of this option in the country. It's been around for 25 years. What happens in the US is different from what happens in other places. And so saying, oh, this happens in Canada, or this happens in Switzerland, or whatever, isn't really valid, because our laws are our laws. And the studies have shown that once this bill is passed, that people fall into place, doctors, and they try and follow the four corners of the law, as it's called, and that in places where medical aid in dying is not, a large number of doctors, I did not, but they help people outside the law, trying to keep the suffering in check. Doctors have had long relationships with their patients, and your favorite patient is dying in pain and suffering. You really have a tendency to want to help them, and this will help to regulate it. The studies have shown it improves quality of care for everyone at end of life, even the people who do not use it. So it increases hospice, it increases people dying at home, which is where people want to die, and it decreases people being in the hospital, where they tend to get over-treated by doctors. Doctors have a tendency to treat, unless someone says to stop. So they are not really going to be motivated to end the life of a patient prematurely. It's only if the patient asks for medical aid in dying that they will be able to get it. And to say that they're going to collude to falsify that the person is terminally ill, just doesn't make sense.
Well, I certainly hope those aren't words you're trying to put in my mouth. I think asking these follow-up questions in a much more nuanced way, that we have a board that has not only diverse lived experience with different disabilities, but people who bring different life experiences, and so I think I'd request that you not answer with a broad brush to these questions, where they're particularly, again, I'd refer you back to Dr. Lisa Iazzoni's study about, sorry, I apologize for that.
And I apologize, I did not mean to put words in your mouth. And I am not familiar with Dr. Elise's work.
Well, and the thing that's valid about her work in this context is what all of us, I think, can agree is that often people who aren't experiencing a disability sometimes think that are putting their own thoughts on someone else's quality of life or reasons that I think we all can agree about not wanting for ourselves, loved ones, etc. Not wanting someone to have a suffering, painful death. I think we're just trying to understand better, could there be situations where it is that this law could have unintended consequences for individuals. But I just wanted to at least clarify that I was not in any way talking about doctors wanting to put their license on the line, in collusion, that the whole reason in many professional realms that there are independent review boards is because there can be times where someone is influenced by someone else's perceptions, but I don't want to monopolize more time, and I think
Elizabeth, I apologize, this is West. Unfortunately, we're going to have, thinking about the rest of the meeting that we need to get through today, I'm concerned about our agenda, and I really would like to focus on finishing up the Q&A with the presenters so that we can move ourselves on. So I apologize for the interruption. I would like to ask the board again if there are other questions that can be answered from this presentation, and if not, we can move on with the agenda. Commissioner McCosh, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Wes. I just want to jump in to express my thanks to Dr. Ruby, Dr. Keigler, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, and our other guests. I'm looking on the screen. Sorry. Yes, Michael. So thank you all so much for coming and giving this side of the very, very complex issue. We really appreciate it. As the board said, they've been asking for this. I'm glad you could come. And as Wes said, we do have to move on for our board meeting, but the board will certainly take all this into consideration and circle back with you about any support that they may have for the bill. So thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.
This is Wes. Thank you very much to all of you for taking the time. It's very important to all of us on the commission that we have fair and balanced information with which to make the most informed decision about how we proceed. So the next item on our agenda, let me just pull it up here. The next item is the chair's report. So I will pull that up as well. First of all, I hope that everyone is ready for some warm weather because it's going to be in the 70s for the rest of the week before it drops back down to fall-like weather next week. I have two very brief summaries of news that make up the bulk of my report. I wanted to let you know that last week I attended the Civic Engagement Day, and it was at City Hall, and it was great to see some board members like Charlie Kim there. I don't know whether other board members were in attendance, and if you were there, then I apologize for not having been able to say hello. It was a fully packed room in the Ionella Chambers, and it was great to see so many young adults with disabilities learning a bit more about civic engagement in City Hall. Both Commissioner McCosh and Andrea gave remarks. Mayor Michelle Wu was there, as well as city councilors Aaron Murphy, and Ed Flynn. Also, John Romano, Chief of Staff on Neighborhood Service, was also there. There was also a discussion on encouragement to join the boards and commissions of the City of Boston. The second item that I wanted to discuss, as I mentioned, that our next advisory board meeting is in 2 weeks on Wednesday, November 8th. So this forthcoming meeting will be our 10th meeting for the 2023 calendar year, and will satisfy the state's minimum requirement of 10 meetings in 1 year. And in the past, we usually combine our November and December meetings into one. But if people feel that having another meeting in 2 weeks is too soon, we may be able to push the November meeting back a bit, because there are a few December scheduling issues with the school committee meetings. So I wanted to ask folks how they feel about whether we should go ahead with the meeting on November 8th or push it to another date in November. Would definitely be canceling the December meeting, which would be December 20th, but we won't be having that. So can I get some response? Jerry, that actually concludes my report. So Jerry, what is your response to that? And then I'll take other questions as well.
Sure. Thanks, Wes. Thank you very much. I'm fully prepared. I mean, it is close, but we've had other meetings in the past, at least on my history of being on the board. We've had other meetings due to other scheduling issues, within a few weeks. So I'm fully prepared to meet again on November 8th. In fact, I shared my schedule with some of the other things that I'm involved in, and said, I couldn't meet on the 8th at other meetings because I had a disability advisory board meeting. So.
This is Wes. Thank you very much for that, Jerry. It is important to understand whether folks have made specific commitments around our meeting on the 8th, and whether rearranging that would have consequences outside of our own commission. Are there other comments or thoughts? Charlie, go ahead.
Yes, I had scheduled for the 8th, but then also I think as we get closer to the end of the month and the holidays, a lot of scheduling conflicts will probably begin to pick up. I definitely know for myself, for both formal meetings and also other meetings. So I would be in favor to keep the November 8th meeting date, as that was pre-planned for a period of time.
This is Wes. Okay, great. Does anybody have any other thoughts, any opposing views, different perspectives? But at the moment, I think we'll assume we'll keep November 8th because that seems to work based on what we've heard. And we don't need to the December 20th meeting, so we can go ahead and take that off the books. So I'll see everybody again in 2 weeks. Okay. All right.
I'll be ready for a very cheery meeting.
Great. I mean, right, it is the holiday season, so it's time to get cheery.
Yeah,
Okay.
Although I was being a bit sarcastic because we have the aid in dying issue to discuss. So, but anyway, hopefully we can find some cheer in between there.
Yes, well said, Jerry, thank you. I think that this will actually give us more time to think carefully and thoughtfully about these issues. Very important bill, and now we've had the opportunity to hear from both sides. So I think 2 weeks is actually a nice amount of time for us to be able to reflect on what we've heard and maybe talk more directly about it at our next meeting. Okay, looking on the agenda, the next item that I see is the advisory board member spotlight. And in my time as chair, I have never participated in a spotlight. Normally we skip that.
This is Andrea. Yes, we were probably operating off an old template from when we did those last year. Unless you want to call on somebody.
This is Wes. I think I don't want to call on anybody. I think it might be a little unsettling for folks who have not been given advance notice. So we will just move on for Commissioner Mercosha's report.
Thank you, Wes. Andrea has slides she's going to share. Alrighty. Okay. So my report this month starts off with some department updates. First of all, some of you may have seen in an email that the city is working on a curb ramp implementation plan. This is a plan that came out of a consent decree in 2021 with some disability advocates. And in this decree, the city committed to installing and upgrading curb ramps throughout the city. They've promised to do 1,600 curb ramps a year. Also, as part of this decree, they are required to create an implementation plan which outlines some of the logistics of fixing and installing curb ramps. So part of this plan also is to solicit feedback from residents specifically with mobility disabilities. So we've reached out to some residents who have mobility disabilities, including some board members, for your input. I think there were some emails going around because everybody hadn't heard about the plan, and that's on us because we really tried to target it towards what the decree requires, which is people with mobility disabilities. So those of you who received the plan, if you'd like to give comments, they are due as quickly as possible, hopefully by tomorrow, because we have to publish the plan on November 2nd. And we want to give Public Works time to incorporate any comments before they publish it. And after the report is published, we will share it with everybody. My next update is that we have our annual Pathways to Employment with the City of Boston webinar coming up on Tuesday, November 14th. And I didn't get a chance to share my presentation before the meeting, but we'll get it out afterwards. And all of these blue text areas are links, so you can learn more about each thing I'm speaking of. So the Pathways to Employment program is a chance for us to demystify ways to get a job with the city. It's very confusing when people want to get hired by the City of Boston because we have different agencies that have their own hiring portals. The Public Health Commission, the School Department, the Housing Authority, they all have different portals to apply for a job. So if you want to get a job with the Public Health Commission, you need to figure out where their website is, what the requirements are as far as residency, because they differ at each agency. So please spread the word to anyone who's interested in working for the city. We have a lot of job openings and we're always looking for qualified applicants. Just a couple of advisory board administrative updates. As Wes mentioned, we're going to cancel the December 20th meeting and next year think about a combined November-December meeting. Andrea and I will work on dates for 2024 in the next few weeks, so hopefully we'll have a calendar schedule before the next meeting. And also wanted to give everybody a heads up that elections will be held at the February meeting in 2024. So please think about that and be prepared to propose nominations at the January meeting. Okay, next slide. Some general City of Boston updates. Currently, as you may know, we are part of the Equity and Inclusion Cabinet. So the E&I Cabinet is launching a pilot academy, which is a series of equity learning experiences for all City of Boston staff. The goal is to build trust across lines of difference, foster a sense of belonging, and equip our colleagues with tools to better serve our diverse communities. And these are some of the departments that will be giving presentations during the academy. I know it's a lot of alphabet soup. That's why I included links so you can click on them and learn more. But it's the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Advancement, the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Advancement, the Mayor's Office of Women's Advancement, Black Male Advancement, Fair Housing and Equity, and our office. We are going to host a training session on Disability 101 which is ways to interact with people who have disabilities, ways to ensure that we meet their needs and accommodations, and that we use appropriate terminology. So that will be happening later this week. Some updates on city boards and commissions. I know last month we talked about encouraging people to look at other boards and commissions they're interested in. Wes mentioned that we talked about this at our Civic Engagement Day, but we currently have openings on several boards that we think would be particularly interesting to people on this board. One is the Freedom Trail Commission, the Conservation Commission, which is under Parks and Open Space, and the Boston Civic Design Commission. We did a slight informal conversation with the city staff who oversees boards and commissions, and we really could only identify a very small number of people who identify as disabled on boards and commissions. So the more we can spread out your expertise and your particular lenses, the better off the city will be. So please think about that. And also, if you have friends or colleagues who may be interested, let them know about these openings. Okay, next slide. Also want to let people know about upcoming municipal elections. We have our important dates listed. You still have time to register to vote in the general election if you haven't done that yet. You have a few more days. The election is on November 7th, and early voting kicks off on the 28th. And in case you don't know, early voting is located at various sites throughout the city. You don't have to just vote in your own polling place in your neighborhood. So stay tuned for more information about that, and please keep these dates in mind. And then just to talk a little bit about voter access for residents with disabilities. All polling locations are accessible, wheelchair access, and this includes the early voting sites. All polling sites should also have the AutoMark machine for voters who need assistance marking their ballots. A few years ago, we implemented accessible electronic voting, so you can vote by mail in an electronic system, which is geared towards people who need assistance to read, write, hold, or physically manipulate a ballot. Other important information regarding elections: if you need to find out who is running in your district city council race, you can click on this map to search for your address. City poll workers are needed. It's a part-time paid position. If you're interested, there's an application you can fill out, and you'll get 2 hours of paid training, and then you get paid for every shift that you work. And finally, be sure to fill out the annual resident listing, because this maintains your voter registration status. This is an annual listing. You can click on this link, maintained by the Elections Commission, and it ensures that when you show up at your polling location, your name will be listed as an active registered voter. And I believe that is it for my report, but I'm happy to take questions. Jerry, I see your hand up.
Jerry, you're muted.
Jerry, you're muted.
That pesky mute button, it gets me sometimes. Although my girlfriend doesn't mind that, actually. So, but anyway, thank you, Commissioner, for your report. It's always chock full. I'm sorry I had to miss Civic Engagement Day. It's always tough when it's during the week and there's other commitments, but hopefully I will make it again soon. My question in regards to the curb ramp. If you still need input or want input, are there any bullet points that you could send or questions that you would want us to answer to make it a little bit to narrow it down, narrow the focus down a little bit? I don't want to put you on the spot now, but maybe you could send those after the meeting to those of us who you think you might still want input from or whatnot.
Yeah, I know the report is in draft. Like I said, they are looking for input. I don't have bullets prepared. Again, I don't want to put Andrea on the spot either, but she may have read it a little more closely than I have at this point. Andrea?
I appreciate your faith in me, Commissioner, but I have not.
Okay. So yeah, yeah, unfortunately, you'll have to read it for yourself and make comments if you have any.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
This is Carl.
Go ahead, Carl.
So, I have been traveling differently lately than I normally do. I am now using a white cane full-time because unfortunately my dog is no longer working for me. And as a result, I just want to let you, Commissioner, and Andrea and others on this board, and I haven't had the chance to read the curb ramp letter yet, but if APSs are involved at all, audible pedestrian signals, that has been a lifesaver for me because my dog used to let me know when it was safe to cross, and I cannot see or hear the APS in most cases. So what I've been using is the vibrating button where I put my hand on the pole and it vibrates when it's time for me to cross, and that has been amazing. So, you know, I'm hoping that the city continues to install the APSs that have the vibrating button for those who are deaf-blind, and that even if it's not part of this curb ramp plan, that you guys please consider that for future discussions with the Department of Public Works, because I would not be able to travel independently and safely without those vibrating buttons, because I do not have the hearing to hear the chirping often when it's okay to cross the street, nor the vision. So the vibrating buttons have changed everything. I didn't realize the impact they had until recently, so thank you.
Thanks for that feedback, Carl. That is absolutely a priority of our office, and we will continue to push that internally as well.
Okay, I missed some of where the talk about the vibrating button, where that happened. Could you reiterate that?
This is Carl. So, so when I traveled with my dog would let me know when it was okay to cross the street. But now that I am no longer, currently not using a guide dog, I have to cross the street and I have to make the judgment when it's okay to cross the street. I cannot see when the light changes, nor can I
Where is
hear.
okay, so where is the vibrating button? Can you explain where that is again?
Well, so nor can I see the light. So all the audible pedestrian signals, many of them now have vibrating buttons. When the light changes, the button on the pole vibrates. So those who are deaf-blind can feel when it's safe to cross the street. So most of the newer signals, if you put your hand on the button, when the light changes, you'll feel it vibrate.
Great, okay, thank you.
So it'll give you tactile feedback of when it's okay to cross.
I want to give a shout out to my staff, particularly Patricia Mendez, our Director of Architectural Access. She works very closely with the Mass Commission for the Blind on wayfinding and orientation, and she pays particular attention to APS signals. I don't want to put her on the spot either. If there's anything you want to add, Patricia, you are our biggest advocate in this field, so I want to recognize you for that.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner. Carl, so the good news is that when the new PRO-AG regulations kick in, those vibrating buttons are included in the new PRO-AG regulations with the audible pedestrian signals. So good news, and thank you for that feedback. That's all.
Okay, are there any other, this is Wes, are there any other questions for the Commissioner on her report? All right, thank you, Commissioner Prakash. Okay, now I'm going to recognize Patricia for the Architectural Access Report. Patricia Mendez, you have the floor.
Thank you, Wes. My name is Patricia Mendez. I'm the Director of Architectural Access for the Disabilities Commission. So for my report, I have a civic engagement opportunity tomorrow night. There is virtual public presentation from MassDOT they're going to present their plans for the Boca Overpass Bridge, which is a connector that goes over the Mass Pike in the Back Bay / Kenmore Square area. The project will replace the whole bridge superstructure. So they're going to present tomorrow, Thursday, October 26th, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. And that is virtual. And to attend that, you can go on the MassDOT website. It's www.mass.gov/org/highway divisions/events. Next, I'm happy to share that I was part of a selection committee for the municipal grant. This is a pot of money that Massachusetts Office on Disability has every year. They select different municipalities and they fund with grants a number of accessibility projects. Examples of these accessibility projects is last year we were the recipients of one of those grants, so we were able to install the vertical lift on City Hall mezzanine. Other examples of those small municipal grants are accessible surfaces for playgrounds instead of the wood chip. Another example is listening devices for city halls or public meeting venues. Next, I'm also happy to share that I participated in a pedestrian safety presentation. It was a tour of Tremont Street, and we were able to present the new designs to a group of mayors that they were visiting in town from out of state. So we were able to show the new design of the streets, including the reduction of the pedestrian crossings and other safety features. Next, Commissioner and I presented testimony on the Architectural Access Bill at the State House virtually this month. This is the Architectural Access Board bill that we discussed a few months ago. There was a hearing and many advocates presented testimony. Next, I'm happy to report that for the Architectural Access Board that had 2 open seats. Both of those seats have been fulfilled. So the new members were sworn in a couple of weeks ago, and their names are Joe Procillo and Katie. Okay, I don't have Katie's last name, but for next report, I'll have Katie's name. But it's 2 people, so now the Architectural Access Board has all of the seats filled. And that concludes my report, and I'm happy to take any questions on those.
All right, thank you very much, Patricia, for that report.
You're welcome.
Wes, just one other comment I'd like to make.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Commissioner. I was looking at another screen. I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Commissioner.
No, just to follow up on the APS conversation. Patricia and I and another one of our colleagues are doing a site visit to the Perkins School next week. So we hope to, make some contacts there that we can bring into more discussions on accessibility in the city of Boston.
This is Carl. I heard about that, Kristen. My friend Kim told me you were coming.
Oh, great. we're looking forward to it.
It's a beautiful campus. You'll enjoy it.
All right. Thank you very much for that comment about Perkins and the visit. So next item on the agenda, looking at the agenda, I see announcements. Are there any board members with announcements to share? I see Charlie. Go ahead, you have an announcement?
I do. It's a little last minute. I should have sent this in to Andrea. The Boston Public Schools Special Education Parent Advisory Council, which I sit on, has their monthly general meeting tomorrow from 7 till 8:30. But the topic, one of the main topics will be transportation will be coming to present updates. And I think if there are any members who are curious as to hearing from parents, normally there's about 300 parents and advocates that join the meeting, and there's going to be an open Q&A session. There will be you'll be able to hear from parents some of what their experiences with transportation, specifically for their children who need accommodations on the buses. So I think when I'm asking some of the questions, I try to filter a lot of those, but then when we're asking for the data, you'll be hearing directly from a lot of parents, because I have encouraged them to come to these meetings, but it's difficult for a lot of parents to be going to multiple meetings. So, and also the meeting is recorded, so what I can do is I'll send Andrea the meeting information if you want to watch it live, and then once it gets posted, and I could also send the summary for that. But I just wanted to kind of throw that out there, because I know that we also have had this transportation discussion here in this commission.
Yes, we have. Okay, thank you very much, Charlie. Thanks for sending that information, and as well as the videotape, or the video recording. I do appreciate that. I'm looking forward to thinking a little bit more about what we'll hear from parents. Are there any other announcements? I actually do have one announcement myself that I'd like to share with everybody. Just to let you know that Deaf Incorporated, which is their Greater Boston office, has made an official move from their Alston location to Watertown. And they have a new location there in Watertown. It's not very far, actually, from the Perkins School for the Blind. Their new location is at 50 Hunt Street in Watertown. And so maybe the main reason for the move was because the agency's needing a little bit less space nowadays, because many of their services are actually done remotely or hybrid, virtually or hybrid. All right. Now moving on the agenda to old business. An item on the old business list was the statewide public space captioning bill. And I believe that the Carl was going to give an update on that, yeah, Carl?
Yeah, so I know I was supposed to alert people when that hearing happened. Unfortunately, I did not, because I was not alerted as to when those two bills were being heard. The committee was supposed to let me know, and so the hearing has already happened, the two bills. And even though we had interpreters and clerk for that hearing, not a single person from the deaf or hard of hearing community showed up and testified for those two bills. Now, so that's the bad news. But the good news is I went and spoke to Chair Livingston, who actually lives in the Beacon Hill area and is a resident of Boston. So he's actually quite familiar with the captioning mandate. He said he would be happy to meet with us any of us individually or collectively as a group, as they have not yet voted on the bills on whether they can go out of committee or not, and we have a little bit of time before they do. So, Wes, I don't know if you or I or even someone from the city of Boston who was involved in the bill would like to set up a meeting with members of the committee, and my office will pay for the communication access required, so we can still meet directly with the members of the committee if you would like me to go ahead and arrange for that.
Yes, thank you, Carl. I'm definitely interested in that. If you could send me just a brief summary or draft of something that would be willing to share with, I can share with the deaf community, local deaf community members and organizations, and see if there's any other response. If anybody would like to, anyone else has any interest in responding and meeting.
So,
Livingston, right? We're meeting with Livingston.
This is Carl, I'm sorry, you asking for a letter, or you asking me to send you a synopsis of the bill to see if people want to meet with the legislature?
Send me a synopsis of what's happened since, and that they're willing to meet with any people who would like to give input. So maybe just like a written little summary of what you've just said, so that I can share that with the deaf community.
Okay.
So it can be posted on social media and invite deaf community members to consider.
Okay. I will do that on Friday.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to getting that email. I appreciate it. All right. Now it's time for new business. And we've got, I guess we do have plenty of time. So does anyone have any new business they would like to raise in our meeting? Elizabeth, I recognize you have the floor.
Thank you. Yes, this relates to the City Hall Plaza renovation. We were going to have the 1-year reevaluation. And so we both, I am thinking that we'd need to figure out what questions we wanted to ask on it, as well as ways to distribute it and collect the information. But I wanted to reintroduce that topic. I realize we now have Mayor Wu's administration in place. And Commissioner, I know we had a contact from a prior administration, but I just wanted to both bring that topic up about the timing, but also realize there are some nuts and bolts issues that it would involve.
Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth. That's a great flag. It is just about a year since we reopened the plaza. So I think it's a good time to do that evaluation. And luckily, the weather has been cooperating. Like Wes said earlier, it's going to be like in the 70s and I think near 80 in the next few days. I think it's supposed to get cold in the next week. But why don't we send out an email tomorrow to see who'd be interested in doing this walkthrough, and I can coordinate that with our Public Facilities Department.
Thanks.
This is Wes here. I actually have a follow-up question related to City Hall Plaza. So all phases of the project now are finished, right?
So all phases of this part of this project are finished, but the plaza is part of a larger renovation of City Hall, reimagining City Hall, and we've sent out that slide deck many times to the board, but the plaza will be done in different phases. So the next phase will work on the area where the old accessibility path is, and the old brick, which is closer towards Faneuil Hall and Washington Street, the Washington Mall, they call it. So yes, this renovation is done, but that did not include the scope of the entire plaza. I don't know if Andrea or Patricia want to add anything to that. One thing I will add is that for those of you who visit City Hall, inside City Hall, the escalators that connect the third floor, second floor, which is where you pay parking tickets and things, up to the third floor, which is where you exit onto City Hall Plaza, those escalators have been broken for a while now, and they are not able to be replaced because the city can't get parts for them because the machinery is so old that they don't make the parts anymore. So we're looking right now at a full elevator being installed, which will go to all the stops, including the mezzanine that we just got the lift installed for over the summer. So it's a longer term project, probably take a few years to complete, but it is underway right now, and that will be a major accessibility upgrade to Boston City Hall.
This is Wes. Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, I need to think about that. That actually answers my question. Okay, great. Olivia, I see your hand is raised, and then I see Elizabeth. Go ahead, Olivia.
Yeah, this is Olivia. I want to go back to City Hall Plaza brick issue. I was part of a civic design focus group, and the first thing that came up was brick and how terrible it is as a surface.
Olivia, can I ask, who brought that up? Was it you, or did it just come up? No? Okay.
I was not the one that brought it up.
I'm not, I wasn't hinting that you were, but just wondering, because that means it's a broader issue among people in the community. So we do work closely with this board, so we will be sure to always keep that as a priority, that any brick sidewalks, brick is allowed to be, current brick sidewalks are allowed to be replaced with brick, but when it's a new sidewalk, we don't allow brick in the path of travel. We require a 5-foot minimum path of travel made of concrete. So we will hold strong to that and continue to push for accessibility on all of our sidewalks.
Yeah, no, it was a Bostonian with a guide dog.
Okay. And how did you feel like the focus group went? Was it valuable?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I felt like there were a lot of points of view that were brought up by a lot of diversity, by a lot of diverse views.
Great. Thank you so much for participating.
Of course.
This is Wes. I would like to add one other comment about City Hall Plaza. I just found a few days ago that the venue for the New Year's celebration will be City Hall Plaza, and that's a big change from where it used to be. So is it possible to get some information about accessibility in advance of that event for that New Year's celebration? Will there be information about accessibility ahead of time? Because I imagine we can expect quite a healthy number of folks to be there for that event. I'm sure some kind of information that could be publicly available would be very helpful.
Yeah, sure. That's called First Night, and it is being held on City Hall Plaza this year. I believe there's construction.
That's what I meant. First Night, exactly.
Yeah, I believe there's construction happening in Copley, so that's the reason for the change. I think I read that. But that's another great flag. We will certainly, prioritize disability access. The whole plaza is accessible. That being said, if there are celebrations and things, which there will be, happening on the plaza, we can try to work with our property management office to create some like viewing spaces, accessible viewing spaces at particular locations throughout the plaza. So great flag, and we will follow up on that.
This is Wes. Great, thank you. Elizabeth, you had your hand raised prior. Did you take it down? Did you still want to say something? Did you have some new business? Or was it about City Hall?
This is Andrea. I think we lost Elizabeth from the meeting.
Yeah, this is Wes. I think also we may have lost her, and Wes has just frozen for the interpreter.
Yes, Wes is frozen for me too. Oh, I think he's back.
Okay. This is Wes. Yep. Okay, I'm back. So Jerry, sorry about all of this. My Wi-Fi is acting up tonight.
Well, maybe my mute button has something to do with your Wi-Fi too. It's a joke. Anyway, just to add a little bit about the city, the first night celebration. When I heard the announcement on the news that it was being moved from Copley to City Hall Plaza this year, they did say it was because Copley Square Park is undergoing a major renovation. And they also said that there would be events both outside, on the plaza and inside. So that's going to be, that'll be something that the commissioner's office will want to make sure in terms of accessibility and everything too.
Yep, thanks, Jerry. We will definitely look into that.
Thank you.
And I see Elizabeth is back.
Yes, sorry, I'm part of the group having technical difficulties tonight. This is just a quick request for clarification that, Commissioner, when you were saying about assembling people or having a walkthrough of the plaza, I thought that when we talked about a 1-year evaluation, it was going to include feedback from people who might have used it over the course of the year. Could you just explain what you meant by that, or if we will also be getting input from people who aren't necessarily there on a particular day to look it over again?
Yeah, absolutely. So I know we agreed, we did the walkthrough last year. I remember Paul was part of it. And I know a few other board members went on the tour with staff from the city, Tommy McGrath. And then we did promise to do a follow-up. I don't know if we actually specified what the follow-up would be in a year. So I'm just assuming that it would be another walkthrough, but we can certainly elicit comments from the public for people who've used the plaza to see how the access has worked out for them. That's no problem at all. We have a newsletter, we can send it out in that, and we can do social media to get feedback. So, yep, that's
great. Well, maybe if it's a combination, both the walkthrough again, as well as soliciting comments for people who, might have experienced it at another time.
Yep, sounds good.
This is Andrea. If you don't mind if I hop in, Wes. Just from looking over previous board minutes, my understanding of the point of the second walkthrough was for the board to be able to see how well the brick held up in its first year, and to sort of, hold property management accountable to maintain it and clear it and things like that without breaking the brick. So that's my understanding of what that piece was about. Not that that's the end all to get feedback.
It's Elizabeth. If I could just add, my understanding was, in addition to the concern about the brick, it was also to know if the wayfinding and lighting and that kind of thing, so some issues that weren't as high a priority as the brick, but are still part of the accessibility.
This is Wes. Commissioner, would you like to respond to Elizabeth?
Oh, sure. Just that, yep, absolutely. Lighting is important, wayfinding, and also, as Andrea touched on, snow clearing. The city's invested in some smaller snow clearing equipment, so we'll do hopefully a better job clearing snow on City Hall Plaza. So yes, all of those things are important, and we will assess all of them now that it's been a year. So stay tuned for more information.
This is Wes. Thank you all. I would like to recognize Paul. I see your hand is raised. Go ahead, Paul.
Yes, I just want to comment on the City Hall Plaza. The brick is all held up really well. Any kind of maintenance, property management has done an outstanding job on it. Hopefully this winter we won't have to know too much about too much snow clearing, but whenever there is any kind of snow or sleet, any kind of ice, property management's right on it all the time, about clearing it, keeping everything clear. I'm not too positive on the lighting, but I do know that a year later, it still looks great. Everything's maintained really well, and it was constructed outstandingly. I want to give credit to Local 3 bricklayers and Laborers Union did a great job on it, and it's held up great. Thank you.
This is Wes. Thank you, Paul. Any other comments about City Hall Plaza? Okay. Now, do we have any other new business?
This is Andrea. I'll just note that if we do want to do any more advocacy letters this year, next meeting is our last meeting to do it, so a discussion and a vote would have to happen now. Otherwise, we've got plenty of time for public comment.
This is Wes. Charlie, you are recognized. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, so I guess this is where I'll re-ask the question then procedurally. What is open for, I know that we've heard two sides of the act that is in, and I read your email, Wes, I just didn't know, is this part of new business, or we did take a vote, and maybe Andrew can refresh our memory on exactly what we did vote on, but should we be, I guess that's the question, should we be doing something to follow up, because now we have both sides, and what was that open, the open request? Is that what Andrew was asking about? Was it for an advocacy letter? And then if it was for a letter, how was that motion stated within the letter? Were we, that's what I'm just trying to figure out procedurally, because it's, I also know that this is going to be the last meeting. That are we supposed to be doing something before the year end, or is this something that we as a board are not doing something for this and looking to push this through the 2024 year? Because I don't know legislation and how the bills and where the bill is at. But if we are to do something, is there
Charlie,
a timing issue?
Yeah, I think Andrea can answer that question.
Thanks, Charlie. Thanks, Wes. Excuse me. The board has not taken a vote at all on the issue we heard about today. In terms of the medical aid in dying legislation. There has been no motion, no vote at any point this year, so there's nothing open and on the table in that sense. However, we are in new business, and any member of the board can bring up during new business for the board to take an action on if the board would like to. So if anyone wants to propose a topic of discussion to take a particular action, generally speaking, in the history for this board, that has been letters of advocacy. Since the board doesn't, doesn't have an office, doesn't have funds, you don't take votes on holding an event or something like that. So at this time, under new business, any board member can raise and make a motion to discuss taking an action. Just noting that because we only have the November meeting, if we wanted to get something in and finished in 2023, now would be the time to have a discussion, make a proposal, because we'd have to vote to finalize that letter in 2 weeks. There's no particular deadline in terms of the legislative session. They're 2-year sessions. We have another year. That said, if the board wants to strategically make a decision to get a comment in this year, you can. It's new business. Yeah. Wes, back to you.
This is Wes. Does anyone have any comment, having heard Andrea, in terms of taking an action? Would we like to have an open discussion about the medical aid and dying bill? This is Wes. I would like to comment, but I'm going to have other board members comment first because I'm limited in my role as chair. Dr. Ruby, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. The Mass Medical Society 6 years ago did a survey of 25,000 members, and it did show that 60% were in favor of medical aid and dying, and actually 62% were in favor of legislation and would support it if passed. However, we argued and argued and argued. It wasn't a discussion because physicians were passionately in favor and opposed. And as our political system shows, a roadblock to decision-making, we came up with something called neutral engagement. And neutral engagement meant that doctors who were not in favor of this did not have to participate, and doctors who were in favor of this were allowed to participate. And this is written into the bill. So no one is coerced to choose medical aid and dying, and autonomy and choice were key factors here, both for doctors and for patients. I have a great deal of respect for this Boston Disability Commission and the advisory board. You have written 3 letters, and I've read all 3 letters, and I am very familiar with John Kelly's arguments. No one wants to put any words in your mouth. You make your own decisions, and I'm absolutely okay with that. But I really feel that looking into the facts are important. This is not about disability. This is about terminal illness. There are a number of statements within these letters that do not have proof. The fact is that it's only terminal patients. Misdiagnosis and abuse have not happened. Physicians are in favor of medical treatment, long-term support services, and full and equal access to all aspects of community life. And that's for disabled and for able. My introduction was going to be about my son, who is a paraplegic. And we have discussed this for a long time because he's been in a wheelchair for 25 years. And he said, "Dad, there are some problems here, but if I have a terminal illness and I'm in intractable pain, I want a peaceful death." Who does not want a peaceful death? So when you write your letter, again, consider the fact that some people may want this, some people may not, But when you write a letter to the Joint Commission on Public Health and you take a stand, that will be listened to. But do you really represent all the disability community? Because the statistics and the
I
numbers,
apologize, Dr. Ruby.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry,
was,
I didn't realize that,
thank you.
sorry, I just need to interrupt. We're not at the public input yet, and so I've made an error.
Oh, I beg your pardon, I thought we had finished that, so
Yeah,
I
so-
apologize.
Commissioner McCosh, would you like to say something?
I was just going to say the same thing. Public comment comes at the end and it's limited to 2 minutes, just to keep that in mind. But thank you, Wes.
Okay. So Jerry, I have something I'd like to share as well, but I think Jerry also want to say something. I know that the Boston Center for Independent Living, I need to mention about that, but Jerry, you have a comment? Jerry, are you on mute or?
Yeah,
If
sorry
not,
about that.
go ahead.
Sorry about that.
Oh, okay, right.
I just feel.
Just a comment that if you wanted to make a comment, then go ahead with your comment.
Sure, yep. I guess I misunderstood. I guess we could hear we could hear the arguments tonight, and even from the tenor of the early part of the meeting, we could hear the arguments tonight and then discuss them vigorously if need be next meeting, and still get a letter out. So I don't feel like we have enough time to thoroughly discuss anything right now. Maybe I would ask Carl if he's still in the meeting. Is a vote is something imminent in regards to the legislation?
So this is Carl. I don't know when they're gonna vote the bill out of committee, but my guess is there is still some time, and I can find that out. And I will email Wesley and Andrea tomorrow to find out what the status of that bill is and when they think they're gonna vote on it.
Okay. And if it is sooner than in 2 weeks, our next meeting, then we'll need to call a special meeting for the board to discuss this.
Chances are, this is Carl, chances are.
And we'll have to make a decision about whether to write a letter or not.
Chances are we have some time, but I'll get more information tomorrow.
Okay, all right, very well. Now I'd like to mention one thing, in fact, about what happened at our August meeting, what happened in August. We did have John Kelly join us, and we were unsure about writing a letter of any sort of support or against the bill. But there was a tie in the vote at that time. So we had a tie between those who wanted to vote against it and those who abstained from support. And so the point with that is that the Boston Center for Independent Living had already released their statement the prior month, and it was approved by their board. And their statement was that they confirmed that they would take no position on the bill for or against the legal aid for medical aid to assisted death, to assist death. And so I just wanted to let you all know that I was just happy to share that statement with you. Andrea can actually send that statement out to you to see what BCIL had said. All right. Are there any other comments or thoughts from the board on this?
is Carl. Should we
Okay,
move on?
this is Wes. My internet seems to be giving me some difficulty here at the moment. Apologies. Okay. One moment, please. I'm hoping people can see me. The interpreter can see Wes, although it's a little fuzzy. So now what I'd like to do is, it's time on the agenda for us to ask for public input.
So this is Andrea. I'll just add to Commissioner Makash's comment that public comment is limited to 2 minutes per person, and so I will chime in when you are at 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. And I see Dr. Ruby. Yes, you can go ahead and have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you for telling us about the Board of Independent Living voted to be neutral. Thank you. Hi, Carl. Good to see you.
Hi, Doctor.
I'm Carl from the State House also because of Spinal Cord Injury Awareness Day. The Committee on Public Health, Joint Committee on Public Health, had a testimony last Friday, and the statements were 40 in favor and 40 against. It was long and drawn out, and people were passionate. And what I tried to say about the Mass Medical Society, yes, we were more in favor of the law than not. However, with respect to each other, we decided to vote for something called neutral engagement, whereby if this is passed, the Mass Medical Society would give information if asked for it. So I hear 4 and 4 last time. I think you should debate it more. I think you should make your inquiries. If you have to do a survey, fine. But neutrality is on the table. And it's not a cop-out. It's still allowing for you to have a say. So thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ruby, for your public input. Are there any other comments from the public? Any other input? Any other public input at this time? Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, Michael. Go ahead, Michael.
Martinetti. Yes?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I did not know about the CIL's letter, which I'm very happy about. We've been working with BCIL for years, and I'm overjoyed. I would echo Dr. Ruby's point that neutral engagement is a wonderful option, and I just want to say that it's really all I want as a disabled person is the option. If nobody has to take it, no participate, no doctor, nobody has to participate. But if this law is not bill does not go through, I feel like my rights have been taken from me as a disabled person. I will not have this option, and I'll have to travel if I'm terminal to a different state. I don't want to. I want to be with my wife and sons and my friends at home. And I watched my grandparents starve to death by stopping eating and drinking. And I saw my brother suffer from leukemia and die. And it's horrible. And I don't know if any of you have had the experience, but that's what galvanized me to get involved in this bill. So thank you and have a good night.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Is there any other public input? Before we ask Carl to make his motion, Carl, do you want to go ahead? Do you have
Yes.
something to say?
This is Carl. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
This is Jerry. I'm not on mute, and I will second that motion.
Funny how your mute button was working when you wanted to adjourn, Jerry.
Well, you know,
Okay, that, the motion's
just-
been made by Carl and Jerry has seconded it. So all in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Okay. The meeting is adjourned at 7:32. And I apologize for my distraction. My daughter's been distracting me these last few minutes, but it's a good reminder that the meeting is indeed over. It's time to be over. Thank you all and have a good night.
Thanks, everyone.